Well, welcome and greetings to Dianne Sherman. I was hoping to go through the bigger part of your story that you've told a number of times more briefly and get into some interesting Q&A. Does that sound good?
Sounds fine with me.
So for the folks who may not have heard your overall story, give us what you think the most important elements
The Cliff Notes.
The ChatGPT summary.
Okay. I went into the hospital to have arthroscopic surgery. I had waited 10 years to have it. And the surgery went very well, although they found a lot more damage than they had anticipated, because in 1981, they didn't have the MRIs and all the different things that they have today to be able to determine what's really going on inside of somebody's body. And so I was on the table an hour and a half longer than they had anticipated. And that meant an hour and a half more anesthesia. And at the time I was modeling and I was a lightweight. And I think it was a combination of a lot of things. Maybe it was an opportunity for me to get out of my body. I don't know. You know, there are questions we have that we won't know the answers to till we're on the other side. Anyway, in the process of coming alive again in recovery after surgery, I heard them speaking and working on a person next to me, and that person was in some kind of distress and trauma, and they were trying to bring that person back, and they were calling her by name, which was the same name as me. And I thought, oh my God, they've gotten the wrong person, done the wrong surgery. And then I thought, no, they're just busy. And, you know, so I said, I'll wait until it settles down and then I'll talk to somebody. Next thing I know, I'm standing at the bottom of that person's bed and I'm looking up at that person. I'm watching them work, 3 people working on her, and it was me. And I had no connection to the me that I saw in the bed. Next thing I knew, I was up in the corner overlooking. And then I was kind of shoved into this blackness. And that was a scary place for me from childhood traumas and whatnot. And I continued through the blackness, hoping I could find a glimmer of light, because one of the fears was being blind or being blinded from seeing what's coming. And I found a glimmer of light. I focused on it. I hyper-focused on it until it started coming bigger and bigger. And the next thing I knew, it was everything around me. And in that diaphanous, cloud-like light, I was then moved forward. And as I found myself floating forward, I ended up in this hall, ancient building. And there were 6 rows of monks on either side. And I floated in the middle of them until I got to the end of them. And the one on the end stepped forward and said, "You cannot stay. It's not your time." And I said, "I've come this far. How can you send me back? I finally found home. I finally found that connection that I've always wanted, even after being married and having a child and lots of experiences in my life. I've never felt this before." And he said, "You cannot stay. It's not your time. You must go back. You have a child." And that kind of stopped me in my tracks. My daughter was 6 years old at the time, and I was divorced. And I thought to myself, who would take care of her? My parents had both died. My mother died the year before, my father 10 years before. My husband was my ex-husband for a reason. My sister had mental illness issues, so she was not a candidate. And I really didn't have close enough friends at that moment in time to say this would be perfect. So in that moment that I'm thinking about her, back in my body. And I awoke from that in my hospital room, not knowing what the hell had happened. Several weeks later, I'm out to lunch or out to dinner with my sister, and we went to a restaurant that we were familiar with and comfortable with and all of that. And we're waiting for a table, and all of a sudden there's this cacophony of voices and information and feelings just coming at me. And I thought, oh my God, what is that? Now, I have described it for years as, now I can't remember what I described it as. Okay. What I'm realizing is it was more like schizophrenia than anything, because I'm hearing all these voices, clearly hearing them and feeling all the feelings, everybody's story, all their emotions, all their pain and suffering. And I thought I was losing my mind. The problem was I didn't have any reference point of having a near death experience, nor did I know what that was. There was no lexicon in my world in 1981 about that. I know Raymond Moody's book had probably come out 5 years before, but I wasn't privy to that information.
Right.
So I just thought maybe I was, as I used to call it, becoming psychotic. I didn't know what I was. I just knew I was maybe in trouble, and I didn't know where to go for help, because if I went to the priest, he would have thought I was a heretic. And if I went to my doctor, he might have thought I needed medication. So I sat on this information a long time until I was introduced to a woman who taught me how to meditate and helped me understand what I had experienced, because I really didn't know what had happened. Was it a dream? You know,
Yeah.
until it started coming back in bits and pieces and visions and whatnot.
And so take us up to uh, what were the major points in your life where this experience influenced you and changed things for you?
Well, probably the first major point was having had the experience and understanding the information that I received. I walked away from my Catholic faith
Mm.
because I realized that everything that I experienced was unconditional love
Yeah.
and total non-judgment. And I had been raised in judgment and fear and control and all that stuff. And I knew it was a lie.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. As I think I mentioned in our prior conversation, I became what I call a spiritual independent after getting to a certain age and realizing this doesn't quite make sense. So,
Well,
well,
you were more forward thinking than I was. I was still stuck in the, because I'm older than you, still stuck in the control of my behavior because I'm a girl. I'm not as empowered and
mm.
whatnot. And yeah,
And what else changed for you?
my view of money changed. I was raised with money. I grew up in Beverly Hills. All the trappings, all of that changed for me. And what I realized I needed was deep connection. And I could read people immediately. I knew someone that I could speak to if we were speaking on the same level. I knew who they were instantaneously. And there was no having to get to know them, you know, being wary about them or anything. I I felt a kinship, you know, and that was the most important thing for me, was being around people who were curious like I was, and who were kind and compassionate and patient and playful. And it was like, wow, it's a whole new world for me.
Mm.
It's not based in fear.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Yes. And so then when did you get into coaching and counseling?
Oh, many years later,
And that's what you've been doing for how long now?
28 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I never spoke publicly about my near death experience until 2011. I think was the first time I spoke at an IANS function.
Yeah.
And there was a gentleman there who said, I would like to record you and put you on my TV show. He was in San Jose. And I thought, okay, I had no idea. and I had no idea about YouTube. I think YouTube was fairly new at that point, and it went up on YouTube, and that's how people started finding me.
Nice. And so you kind of were an accidental coach. People called you up and said, "Hey, I'd like to talk."
Well, I have always been someone that people have gravitated to for comfort and information, oddly enough, even as a kid. And I thought it was a burden because it kept me from being a kid.
Hmm.
Um, but as I got more into the information, I became a spiritual junkie at a certain point. I went all
Interesting.
over the world going to sacred sites and doing all kinds of, odd things and going out of body and, just trying it all on. And I became more aware of, and I studied for years and years and years, like the vibrational work. I studied that for years. And so as I grew in my awareness and in my information, my clientele's need changed and grew and all of that. And it's just been a remarkable journey. And I think one of the major things for me when I came back was helping people realize that there's nothing to be afraid of. And I wanted people to know that because I knew what it felt like to be afraid. I'd spent most of my life being afraid. And what I
Mm,
realized is at that point, I wasn't afraid of dying in any way, shape, or form. I was having trouble living because I'd always felt like odd man out. And now I really felt like odd man out.
mm,
How many people in 1981 could I connect with on that level? There's a small handful. But
right.
you know how spirit works. I was guided, when the student is ready, the teacher appears, and boy, did they. And each and every one was a gift in itself. So it was, I'm sure I'm wired to be of service because I think I've always been an empath
Yeah.
and a sensitive. But then I came online with the Claires after the experience. So it seemed like a natural thing to do. I was afraid to do it. I also battled not feeling good enough about myself to do it. But then I was given a gift of automatic writing with Mother Mary, and I did that for many, many years. And the counsel that I got and the loving, the repetitive encouragement, and, you're here for us too, as well as for yourself kind of thing. It's okay to do this. We believe in you, and you're not doing it alone. We're speaking
Mm,
with you. And when I did my first talk, public speaking, I was terrified of my first talk. They kept telling me, "We're going to speak through you." And I thought, okay, through me. That was before I knew about channeling or anything like that. And I just trusted. The first couple of minutes at the podium, I was frozen.
yeah.
And then as I just started to open my mouth, I could feel the energy and I could hear the tonality in my voice change. My voice got lower and the resonance was different and there was a comfort there. And it was like coming home.
I found that spirit brings the right people at the right time. It's crazy how,
Always. The synchronicity is just sublime.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll learn about something and virtually the next day somebody comes who can use that information.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Well, we're vibrational beings. Whatever we are working with within ourselves and our belief systems about ourselves in that moment in time gets mirrored out to other people's energy and their vibratory frequency, and it mirrors back to us. It's a magnetic pull.
But it's like the universe knows, which it does, that so and so needs this kind of help, and we're going to point them to Dianne or to Daniel, and then they say, okay, and we're going to give Dianne this bit of information that's going to help that person. You
Yeah,
know, it's the level of orchestration is always amazing to me.
it is.
It's so wonderful. So, what sort of things have you been focusing on in your coaching lately?
Well, I have a new part of my work besides, counseling people, doing intuitive readings with people and vibrational healing with people, if they have blocks and barriers and whatnot. I have been led to work with people who have spirit attachments, which is new for me in the last less than 2 years.
Mm.
And having had those experiences myself, because I didn't always know how to protect myself and keep myself clear, I've had discarnate spirits and I've had possessions. And I know how overwhelming and daunting those experiences are. And I had a lovely man who I would go to who always knew how to clean me up and clear me out and do all those great things so I could become me again. And I called him because I felt a really big presence with me, and I was not in a position to do it on my own. And I didn't know anybody else who could. And his phone was disconnected. And I was shocked because we were quasi friends as well as, working in the field and all that. And I
Right.
would thought, he would let me know. I knew when he was moving and got all his information, all that. And Spirit said to me, check the internet, look at the newspaper in his area. He was in Cody, Wyoming. And there was a newspaper story about him. He had died in a car accident in the snow on my birthday. And it seems as though the story comes later that he hadn't crossed over. And he was the energy that was with me that I was calling him to help me relieve. So it was
That's
like,
ironic.
yes, well, he knew I did counseling. And I think he believed I could talk him off the ledge because what I later found out, and this man was a major healer and such a love,
Mm.
such a good man, and worked hard for people. And he wasn't loving himself. He got in the car and didn't put his seatbelt on. He was not taking care of himself. And when he realized he'd killed himself, he was so distraught.
So to be clear, he got into a car accident that killed him.
Yes, I'm sorry if I was not clear on that. Yes, that's what killed him. He went through the windshield. They showed a picture of the car
But it
in the
wasn't
newspaper.
intentional.
Oh, no, no, no. He had just not put the seatbelt on.
Yeah. So you you intuited that he felt guilty about that. And I thought perhaps he came to you just to say goodbye, but no, he was asking for help.
Yeah. He was distraught, which oftentimes is the case with discarnate spirits. Sometimes they don't even know they're dead because everything looks the same.
Yes. So I mentioned to you, I think that I'm very interested in the work of Emanuel Swedenborg, and he indicated the same in some of his writings, that he was uh, able to see how people would pass over. They suddenly they're not in the body anymore. But
Right.
in spirit, it appears we have a spiritual, energetic body as opposed to the physical body, and it seems every bit the same as this one. But if folks are not ready to pass over, pass up, they can still be in this dimension we're in. And then I've heard a number of people,
But they can't mobilize. That's why they take on a body
well,
because they can't physically move around.
I've heard them say they can move around, but they can't be heard. They walk through walls and things of
Right.
that nature.
And everything looks the same to them. So they don't understand what's happening.
Yeah, I've
It's
heard
like the
of
movie where the little boy says, I see dead people. Yeah.
yes, Sixth Sense.
Right. Sixth Sense. That's what they were asking for was somebody help us move on.
So I know a few people who've done this kind of work where they go out of body or in spirit. They help discarnate entities, people
Mhm.
who have died but don't realize that they're dead, or maybe they're afraid to go all the way because they're feeling guilty or like, oh no, what awaits me if I actually do the full transition?
Right.
Thoughts on that?
Well, I think oftentimes they're afraid of the recrimination on the other side. It's only unconditional love. And I remind them that there is hospital and education on the other side for anybody who needs to right themselves energetically. And so all they want to do is love on you. There's nothing else going on. It has nothing to do with what religion teaches us. Not to negate religion, I think it's a path to spirituality, but it's
Yeah,
not the truth
yeah.
as I experienced it.
I heard somebody relating this experience. I think it might have been Swedenborg who was observing somebody, and it was kind of like watch this person, and the person came across, and they were like holding their chest because they had a heart attack, and then an angel came to them, another spirit came to them and spoke to them, and they uprighted, and they realized they were okay, and then their countenance changed to a young
Mhm.
person from an older person. So that's some of what we have waiting for us. If
Absolutely. Choice. We have choice and complete knowledge and a sense of belonging that you never are going to have here on earth.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I stipulated when I came back, if you can do that, but I thought at the time I could, I said, if I have to be here, then I have to be able to touch back into that experience. I got to create heaven on earth here
Yeah,
in
you,
some way or other. Otherwise, I can't stay.
you don't want to be as cut off as most of us are. It's tough, you know.
Well,
I
it's
think
tough when you've known both.
I, even tougher. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Because you've tasted the ambrosia, so to speak.
exactly.
Yeah,
And it feels like your natural state. This doesn't feel like the natural state.
no, no.
So,
And I think that's what uh, leads a lot of people, and I think you have some opinions on this as well, to get involved with things like drugs and alcohol.
well, it's interesting having grown up with a father who numbed out every day of his life practically, but not till 5 o'clock. He thought he had it all in control because he didn't have anything till 5 o'clock. Numbing out is one thing people need to do, I guess, and that's why they use it. Another, I think, is they use spirits, alcoholic spirits or drug spirits, to get to spirit, to get to their ego conscious part, to literally have some kind of divine connection. I
Mm.
think that's why the psilocybins are and ayahuasca are so becoming so much bigger because it gives people a chance to step out of themselves in a more profound way.
Yeah, it's such a mixed thing, though. I think it's a double-edged sword, is the euphemism that they can give us a glimpse, but they also can, to some degree, open us up to an attachment, like you were referring to. There was one experiencer I listened to who said he was in a, a bar and he saw somebody get totally, you know, drunk, and he saw a spirit jump into their body.
Oh, I see what you're talking about. Yes. Yes. Well, anytime you take your vibration down, you open yourself up to that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that goes along with the program. You not loving you opens you up to all kinds of dark nonsense.
So that's the main reason that I reached out and connected to you, is because I've been doing a lot of work with folks who've had distressing spiritual experiences, negative spiritual experiences of one sort or another. And so I'd like to discuss with you, get your opinion, perspective. Um, I don't believe there are singular perspectives. I think it all depends on where what we're viewing and what angle we're viewing it from.
Sure.
But I think that folks like yourself who've been to the other side have perhaps a clearer lens to view things through. So I don't want this conversation about such things to spread any fear. You mentioned fear earlier, and I think that's one of the big issues. Do you want to speak a little bit about fear and attachments and what your perspective might be?
Well, I think depending on what you're dealing with, a discarnate spirit is very different than a possessing force. A
Agreed.
possession is much bigger and can encompass a lot more. And, I had an experience many, many years ago, um, before I realized what all that was about. Um, and I went to somebody who knew how to take care of that. Okay. And I drove an hour to get to him, and he worked on me for 2 hours. And after that, I felt better. And he had this specific machine, which I can't tell you what it was called, but he took some kind of marker for me. I think it was my hair, and put it in the machine. And, so it spoke for me. And he found that it was almost like fish hooks in my back that had been put in by this entity. And when he removed them, energetically removed them, I mean, he got behind me and behaved like he was removed. I could feel it, and it was painful.
Mm.
And that was the first time I realized, wow, this is more than just on a certain level. This is into my physicality.
Mm.
Now, all these years later, I have dealt with some clients who have had drug issues. One young man who'd been on the street a long time because of drugs. And he had a relative who had come to me to say, please, can you do something on his behalf? And I had no idea at that moment in time whether I could or couldn't, because it was all new for me. But I called in my guy, from the ethers, and another gentleman that I had worked with who taught me the vibrational work and had worked kind of in this realm to an extent, or was fascinated by it. And they were both deceased. And I called them both in to, give me their best shot at whatever I could do with the information I had to work with. And we cleared this young man, and he went into rehab the next day, has been clear and clean ever since. And it's been over a year. So
what was his side of this like? How did he feel when you did this work with him? I assume he, first of all, as we know, you can lead a horse to water, but it has to want to drink. So he must have been finished with all of that, mentally at least.
no, because I worked through him, through his sister. I did not work directly with him.
Oh, fascinating.
Yeah, I've worked with people on the other side of the globe.
But you had his approval. He had
his approval. Yes,
Yeah.
she'd gotten his approval to do this. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, I mean, at the time he didn't believe it. He thought it was silly and whatnot, but he said, whatever, you can do whatever. And he didn't have withdrawal, which was really interesting. No.
Yeah.
Well, it's like with my knee surgery. The woman who was sharing the hospital room with me had a lot of pain and suffering, and she had a lot less done to her than I did. And I was not in pain. And I was up walking on crutches that a couple hours after surgery. So.
And you said the doctor was amazed.
He was amazed. He'd never seen anybody heal as fast as I did.
This is a common thing too, that people have had near-death experiences, at least for that brief period of a few weeks or a few months or possibly longer, that they heal faster. I've heard that a lot, and especially with folks who the cause of their passing was some illness that they had, as
Right.
opposed to just anesthesia, not to diminish your experience. And like Anita Moorjani, who,
I was just going to say, yes, her story is just phenomenal.
yeah,
Yeah. And it took a long period of time for all of that to happen and work out. Yeah.
but she came back, and within a short while, she was clear.
Absolutely.
Another one is Mellon Thomas Benedict, if you know of him.
Yeah.
He had brain cancer, and then a short while later they scanned him and couldn't find any
Had
evidence.
nothing, right?
And it had killed him just I don't know, a month or so before. It's just amazing
Well,
how,
don't you think that's part of the gift of all of it? I mean, I'll be 80 next year. Okay. I'll be 79 in a couple of months, but 80 next year. And I just had a checkup with my doctor, and he's always amazed because I'm not on any medication.
yeah,
I have some things that, we monitor and whatnot, but I'm healthy as a horse.
yeah.
Not
I
exactly what I want. I'd rather be on the other side at this stage of the game, but I'm clearly here for a while.
you're looking forward to getting back there.
Oh, I have been for 40 years. Absolutely. And everybody in my family died in their 60s. So I naturally assumed I would get to go home then. And then as time passed and passed, and I'm still here.
Yes, I know a few people have said, I didn't think I'd last this long.
Well, I didn't with my history. I didn't. Yeah,
But clearly you're not done.
clearly I'm not.
So if we have a listener, I'm sure we will have a few who are intrigued and or concerned about possibly having an attachment of their own. What advice might you have? I would say, first of all, no fear. Do you agree?
Absolutely. Everything happens for a reason. We don't always understand the rhyme and reason for it. Won't till we're on the other side. But trust that this is something that's occurring for you to have some major awareness, some upshift, upload of some kind, and it's okay.
Right.
You're not going to die from this. You might not enjoy the ride, but there's nothing to be afraid of. You are in a free will state, and you have the ability to contact me or anybody else that's doing this kind of work to get support and get it taken care of.
Yeah, yeah. It's a spiritual challenge.
It's a spirit. It's an emotional spiritual challenge. There's a lot of emotion that goes with it because those energies play on us. They play on our frailties, weaknesses, lack of self-esteem, lack of self-love. And, that's not fun, but it's also an opportunity to say, hey, wait a minute. I love me enough to deserve better than this, and I'm going to get this taken care of, period.
Yeah. So I believe that fear is one of those things that opens the door.
Absolutely.
And then low self-esteem, negative thoughts,
Fear lowers the vibration faster than anything.
and negative patterns of thought. I suck,
All hand in hand.
I'm
Yep.
stupid. Those that voice in the head, which I like to say, tell me if you agree, we are not our thoughts.
No, but our thoughts create our reality. So
So
it's a fine line.
there was an anecdote or a story about some, I'm going to say Taoist master, I may have that wrong, who said basically that the mind is a wild horse and it's up to us to tame it.
I agree with that. As I tell my clients, stop listening to your monkey mind. It's not a wise guru and it's not your friend.
Oh, it is a terrible taskmaster.
Yes.
It,
And I
it,
have a ruminating mind, and mine would just loop, loop, loop all day, all night. I had to learn to take my power back. And the first time I had a moment of quiet,
yeah,
one like millisecond of quiet, I knew I was onto something. Because what I was doing is I was having the thought I was creating, not allowing it to create the thoughts in me. And
yeah,
when I started doing that, I just repeated one word over and over. And it doesn't matter what the word is. Mine was green because that was my favorite color. I just kept repeating it until I was flooding my mind and I wasn't hearing my monkey mind speaking.
one of the mantras I love is thank you. Just thanking the universe, thanking the creator, just being grateful. And that's a high vibration, which is in itself a kind of uh, energy shield.
It is. It is. I'm in gratitude 99% of the time. When I
Yeah.
first wake up in the morning, that's my first thoughts are thank you for X, Y, and Z and all of the benefits and blessings and for being me.
So, yeah, we're not our thoughts. I also like an analogy that the mind is like a garden, and we can cultivate the flowers and pluck the weeds. But just like any garden, the flowers need constant attention and watering and fertilizing and care and the weeds always need to be plucked.
Exactly. We're always needing to tend the garden.
Yes.
And that goes back to self-love, learning to turn within to see, as I say to my clients, because they know how this works. Are you hungry? Are you thirsty? You know where those live in the body. What are you feeling emotionally? Where is that in your body? That's how you start tending to yourself. What do you need to do with that feeling that you're having of the emotion? What is it asking from you?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, do you need to go walk in nature? Do you need to call a friend? Do you need to take a time out? What do you need? People don't know to tune into themselves. And these are simple steps you can do every day, several times a day
Yeah.
to get more familiar with who you are and have a relationship with yourself. A lot of the work that I do is inner child stuff because so much of the trauma is stuck in those little kids. And one of the things I really wanted to do was to reclaim all those dashed hearts because I had a dashed heart from childhood. And I
Yeah.
realized after my near death experience, we don't have to live like that.
Yeah.
And you don't have to have a cosmic 2x4 to make the change.
I totally agree. I heard you say in another interview about the inner child, inner children, really. There's
Right. Different
various
ages.
versions of us from all the way along the life path where you kind of have a little bit of arrested development for that portion of yourself where you
Kind of.
kind of, yes.
You're being kind.
Being gentle, yes. And there's a practice now in therapy known as IFS, internal family systems. Have you heard of it?
Yes.
And it very much echoes that and works on some of those parts. And so they call it an internal family, as in there's these different parts of you that are a family within that need to be homogenized and um, appreciated. Um, and
Accepted and
occasionally,
acknowledged. Yeah.
yeah, and occasionally investigated, I'd say, because they, I, what I've heard about IFS is that each of the parts is trying to help, but they may be working at odds with each other.
Mhm.
And if we can understand what each part is trying to bring to the party, the fearful part is trying to prevent you from harm, right? So what would you say to someone who has everyone, including probably you and me as well, still has fear that we're dealing with? How do you manage fear?
Well, my take on fear, the analogy is FEAR stands for forgetting everything's all right.
Oh, I like that one.
We're projecting out into the future what's going to happen if I do this, or I accept that, or I take that step. And they put themselves in this process of trying to understand
Mm.
what's going to be at that moment in time. Well, I do psychic work and I don't go there, for God's sake. You got to be here in the present. That's where the guidance is. We do not go out there and we don't go back there. We stay here.
Well, be here now, the power of now, everything happens
Eckhart
in the
Tolle,
now.
The Power of Now. It rocked my world when I realized I didn't have to be elsewhere. I could just stay here where it's safe, where I'm at peace, and get the guidance to know what the next logical step is. Also, we can work on ourselves, hand on, doesn't matter which hand on high heart and solar plexus, and going within and asking your body, is this the next logical step? Is this safe for me? Are these people in my highest good? Get a feeling, get a resonance, learn to work with your intuition.
Mm.
We have much more power than we realize.
Oh, please say more.
We are co-creators in this experience. One of the reasons we're here is so that the God source can experience everything we are experiencing. So we are a direct connection of the God source. In Catholic speak that I grew up with, you were made in the image and likeness. Well, that's paltry in comparison to what I know we are.
Mm.
We can create on massive levels. You're seeing people doing it around the world.
Well, that's what being created in the image and likeness of God is that we are creators too.
Yes, to an extent, but it kind of
It
makes
diminishes.
it makes it smaller, as opposed to knowing I am a direct connection to the God source. That feels a lot more empowering and a lot bigger to me than I have a soul, which is how it was translated, in the image and likeness, you have a soul. It's being who we are. We are not humans having a spiritual experience. We are spirit having a human experience. We use this vehicle. It's like a doctor putting on scrubs. We put this physicality on, and it allows us to move around and create and do things.
Right.
But if we could see ourselves in our light body, it's like 15 feet high. We're huge.
I I love a line from the movie Aladdin where Robin Williams as the genie says, phenomenal cosmic powers, itty bitty living space.
Exactly. But
That's one of my favorites.
we're so conditioned to not believe in the all rightness and the bigness of who we are as spirits that we can't fathom that we have that kind of power. And so we make ourselves small and small and small. And the ego, wants to keep us in the box where it keeps us safe.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the job that the ego is doing, but we need to work around that and not limit ourselves to it.
So the thing that I like is to think of the ego as a partner, not as a dominant factor. Um, it's a tool, it's an assist, but if we let it be in charge, it runs us off the rails.
Exactly. Well, it keeps us from having the life we're here to have. We're all supporting the one. We're all part of the one. It's like people worry about if somebody they know something great happens to them, and then all of a sudden that person starts feeling badly about themselves because they're not creating it. But anybody who gets to have something good elevates the rest of us because we're all one.
Yes, yes, yes.
So we have to celebrate all the things that need celebrating, everybody's, including our own. We're not doing this alone. We're all connected. It's all learning, right? It's all an education. So there's no loss, even when there's pain. I always feel that we're getting the grace to go through whatever it is that's happening.
I I believe in the power of prayer. How about you?
Well, having grown up praying the rosary and all of that, yes. Now, I don't pray in that way anymore. It's a different relationship for me now. I'm in communication
Yeah.
at all times. I'm a conscious channel. I no longer do physical channeling, but I'm a conscious channel with my clients. And for myself, I'm always having a conversation with God.
So somebody asked me very recently, just a couple of days ago, a young man who I was counseling who was having a lot of trouble. Um, and I explained, he's like, well, how do I pray? And I said, you just have a conversation. There's no formula. There's no,
There's
um,
no right or wrong to any of this.
No special incantations.
No,
It's just, dear God, Lord,
but you have to believe,
universe.
you know?
Yeah, yeah. Help me out. And then I've found when I ask for that kind of help, it's there. Now, the other part of the problem is it shows up in ways you may not be expecting or wanting, you know? It can show up in unexpected ways, but if you go with the flow and you take what's coming, you realize, oh, this is solving that problem.
It's you says somebody once said, you get what you need, not what you want.
Yes.
Now, for me, I don't do a lot of asking. It's more in the awareness of the gratitude and how things have played out and how I see what I maybe couldn't have seen before. And I'm always gratified and surprised a little bit at how in sync source is with me, how much I feel loved. And that doesn't mean I don't go through human stuff, because I do. I just a couple of weeks ago went through some stuff, and it's always an opportunity for me to know, okay, I know I'm guided and I know I'm going to get the grace to go through this. And I know that I'm not doing this alone and there's nothing to be afraid of.
Bingo.
So I focus on that always, no matter what it is.
Yeah. You get into a rhythm where you've got this partnership going on and
Exactly.
you're there all the time. But for a lot of people, they're in, they're out,
Right.
mostly out. And
Right.
so prayer is a way I think of dialing the connection. It's sort of a spiritual 911. It's like, hey, I could use a little help.
Right. But I want people to know that it's just as important to have dialogues when you're not needing help.
Oh, yes,
It's a
yes,
friendship, it's a relationship, and it's a give and take, and make it more intimate.
yeah,
Don't think that there's something so big and lofty, man in the sky kind of thing,
yeah,
um, that you don't deserve to connect with on that kind of level. And yes, you do.
exactly. And so it becomes uh, this amazing reflection of gratitude. It's like, thank you, thank you, thank you. And
Yeah,
and even when things seem to be going wrong, I think to myself, I wonder how this is going to work out because it always works out.
it does. We just can't fathom what it could be because we're not playing on the same playing field that the universe is. It's so much bigger than we can even understand.
So one of the pushbacks you'll get, um, anybody doing this kind of espousing of these thoughts is, well, one is, what about when somebody dies? Well, it's sad for us, but they're graduating. You can't wait to get back to the other side, right?
Right.
That's only sad for us.
Right. It's our connection to them and feeling that we're not going to have them anymore, their energy or their love or whatever. And that's not the truth. They're right there. The veil is paper thin.
Yeah.
They're never away from us. It's just they're in a different form. I Less than 2 months ago, my dear friend who lived next door to me um, passed away,
Mm,
and she had an assisted.
mm,
And it was the first time I was present with somebody when they passed. I'd been with people who were dying in the process of, but I wasn't there in that moment. And certainly not in the moment of an assisted, which is quite clear and quick and, you know, easy peasy in a way. And it was amazing to me how fleeting life is. We're here right now talking, and the next minute, we're no longer here talking. And it was
yeah.
that simple.
Yeah.
But there's nothing in death to be afraid of. It's just a change of venue. We've outgrown being here. We're on
Yeah.
to the next experience. I'm hoping this is my last lifetime because there are things on the other side I know I'm going to really enjoy doing that I
Mm.
haven't been privy to before because I wasn't at the level to do them. Don't know what that all means. I just know it as a feeling inside of me, and I'm excited about it.
But then, where was this? Where did this take place? Was it in Canada? I know Canada has support for assisted.
California,
California. Wow,
it's legal in it's legal in 14 or 15 states now.
wow. So, if somebody's considering that, not because of terrible physical condition, but because of perhaps mental anguish or suffering, what's your recommendation? How do you counsel somebody who's considering leaving this world intentionally?
Well, I think each one of us come to a place where we have to decide for ourselves what we can and cannot handle. And I know for my friend, her cancer and her life, she was 85. She just couldn't do anymore.
Yeah,
She just needed relief.
yeah,
And I was glad that she had the ability to have it. You know, we've been euthanizing animals forever, you know.
yeah,
Um, I believe that the universe doesn't have any judgment on us about it. Are there ramifications to it? I don't know the answer to that. I don't believe there's because there's no punishment and you know
yeah.
there's no
No,
judgment. So the only ramification would be for you with yourself when you do your review, whether you felt that that was in your best interest or not from this vantage point.
my understanding of it is that we come with a plan, and we come with things that we're trying to learn, experiences we're want to have, and if we check out early, I think it's giving up on the plan. And
Well, that's what I meant. When you go back and you look, you know, was that
yeah,
your best shot? You know,
yeah, and if you give up on the plan, I've heard people say that they were told, uh, these are experiencers who had the experience because of trying to take their own life. And I've heard it said that, okay, well, you're going to have to fulfill that plan. It's just going to be in another lifetime. And
right?
like, oh no, okay, well, send me back. I'll do it.
I'll get it done this time.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, I think oftentimes the babies that come in for short bits time are often people who have shortened their stay.
interesting. I like the thought that they wanted an experience to dip their toe in the physical, but um, didn't want to get as muddy as
Knee deep in it.
yeah, yeah,
Well,
exactly.
I often believe that, you know, babies cry when they come out from birth because when they hit the air, they realize, oh my, I've done it again. I'm here again. Why did I say I would do this again?
Yeah. Well, I've also heard it said that if you have the attitude of I'm never coming back here, that's a sign that you need to come back.
Well, that's a choice, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. So you mentioned spiritual hospitalization in a sense. Um, there's a book from South America. I forget which country, called No Solar. Have you heard of it? And they made a movie out of it called Astral. Oh, I'm going to forget Astral City. And this was channeled work by a person on this side from a person who had passed on, and he was relating what he had experienced. And it speaks directly to that. And it also speaks to somewhat distressing spiritual experiences, because this spirit who had passed said that for a while he was in a dark forest, and it was scary and foreboding. And then he found his way out of the forest, and then was taken to a hospital and was replenished. I find that very hopeful for people.
Well, and I think that's the point. They're doing everything that's analogous to us to make our journey and our crossing over and our connection easy. It's giving us the grace on every level. And I think that's the thing that so touches my heart, is that there's that level of love and concern and care for us, that would be provided, because not everybody, when they cross over emotionally, is going to be okay. They don't instantly go into their previous form. I mean, I take somebody like Hitler, who had quite an experience and created quite an experience on this planet. I'm sure there was a lot of work that had to have been done in that point in time,
Yeah.
to integrate their soul back in. And even in my own world, I think about my dad, who, growing up, he was a good man on one level, and he was a terrifying man on another.
Mm.
And I realized in the bigger picture, as I got more awake and aware, that he loved me enough to be the bad guy in my life for my education.
Mm. Yeah, and a lot of experiencers mention that when they um, get to the other side and see both sides of the picture, to some degree, they realize, well, I signed up for that because of the lessons that I would learn,
Of course.
which is hard to understand, but it makes sense. It makes more sense than it being random.
It does to me, and it alleviates that need to hold on to anger and resentment, which only destroys us. It's not helping or hurting the other person, but it does destroy us. I do believe that all illness comes from emotions that are stuffed and not addressed.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
I work a lot with that with my clients, to help them understand what's going on in their world and why.
Yes.
Yeah.
Causes literal energy blockages,
Yeah.
which show up. I've heard the phrase, what is mentally suppressed is physically expressed, which, well, so let's bring this to a close here. This has
Right.
been wonderful and marvelous, and I'm so grateful for this conversation, and I'm
Me
sure
too.
that folks listening will be as well. Any final thoughts?
There's nothing to be afraid of here or there. And focus on really learning to love and appreciate who you are in this lifetime and the gifts that you came in to share. And maybe it's just your presence, and that's enough. And really celebrate who you are.
Yeah.
As a parent, we all worry about loving our kids, right? Well, one of the things that I've learned is that kids learn by watching us. And if we're not loving ourselves, it doesn't matter how much we love them. We're maybe teaching them how it looks not to love yourself. So
That is so true. They hear the words like 1/20th of the time, maybe, but the actions, they end up emulating them all.
exactly. So the best gift we can give them is having them see their parents learning to love themselves. And it doesn't matter at what stage we are. It's never too late to learn to do that. And it changes the game,
Yeah, and
literally.
being willing to accept responsibility for our shortcomings and working on them.
What shortcomings? The universe doesn't see us that way. That's the whole point. There's no judgment. So why are we judging ourselves?
That's great. Yeah.
It's the judgment we hold over our heads from childhood that creates all the nonsense that we experience. So
Yeah,
let's stop looking at what's wrong and focus on what's right, what's great in us,
which is everything.
everything. And what's great in your day. What wonderful things did you experience today? Let's not focus on, well, that didn't work and that wasn't okay. It's all good. Yes, it's all good.
If we can get out of our own way. Well,
Exactly.
that's a wonderful place to end it. And your website, remind us of your website.
It's guidingyourspirit.com.
guidingyourspirit.com. And if people want to reach you, you have a contact form on there. That's how I found you.
I do.
All right. Dianne, I am so grateful, and you're such a pleasure. Really.
Thank you, Daniel. It's been lovely connecting with you and being able to share. I love talking on this level. As you know, that's how it feels all the time.
Awesome. Maybe we'll do it again soon.
I look forward to it.
All right. Blessings.
Blessings to you.